All right, for more on STEAM education, Jessica Hiltabidel. She's the manager of teaching and learning at the Center for Inspired Teaching. So what do you think? I mean, is this the cool thing now? We're going to have people singing in class?
So it's sort of the great secret. This is not the cool thing now. This has always been the cool thing. It's really the way education has worked for, since ancient times. If you think about the mathematicians and the Egyptians and how they built structures, it was really combining the creativity along with the mathematical and engineering skills.
So, I mean, another way to say it is that the original STEM, the science and technology part of it, wasn't creative enough. I mean, is that what we're saying?
Exactly. It was always meant to be integrated with the arts and using the creativity so that they could seamlessly work together to help our students develop into well-rounded learners that are going to be able to be successful in 21st century America and the rest of the world.
In the U.S., we have seen a lot of budget cuts at a lot of schools. And unfortunately, music programs and art programs, those are usually the first ones to go. Is there any way to change that?
There is, and it's really through the creation of interdisciplinary studies. Right now, there's such a huge focus on standardized testing that you have to prioritize mathematics and literacy development. But really, you can do that along with arts and music and physical education.
I would think that the parents are the ones you have to convince, not the kids. I think the kids probably are loving this 24/7, but the parents are going to say, look, my kid's getting ready for XYZ college entrance exam. I want them to be focused on math and English, period. I don't want them doing any arts. I mean, you're going to have parents like that.
Yeah, so I have sort of a perfect real life example that refutes that. There's a young woman I was tutoring who was working on mathematical skills of permutations and combinations and probability. That's advanced statistical calculations. She couldn't understand the algorithm. But what I found was that it wasn't that she didn't understand the math, she processed it differently. So I gave her a blank piece of paper and she drew a beautiful picture that created a tree diagram. From that moment on, she didn't have to memorize the formula. She actually understood how to derive it. And so she actually understood the math better than someone who might have just learned to plug in numbers.
Speaking of which, when these kids, they grow up and they go work for a lot of these tech companies and Google or Facebook or any of these tech companies, one of the criticisms is that they may have the skill sets to do what they do on the computer, right, but they may not have necessarily the softer skills that you need in life, the socializing, the teamwork, and things of that nature. Do the arts, I assume they help with that?
Absolutely. That's where the creativity, that's where the problem solving, that's where the teamwork comes into play. When you are creating music, it's not in isolation. There's various components to it. There's the musician who writes it. There's the composer who translates it to paper. There's the performer. All of that is seamlessly connected. So when you're working together, another example is, a sports analogy when you're working as a team.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of it. And you hear the criticism with technology firms because you want more diversity, right? It can't be the same type of people working at the same companies over and over again. And when you put in some of these more diverse individuals who have this creative spark to them, that also helps inspire the other team members as well.
Exactly, that's where the innovation comes from. As a Latina female math teacher, I'm in the minority, I'm the exception to the rule, but I shouldn't be, because students need to know that there is a place for them in this world, and they need to know that they can find an entry point, and that for some of them might be through arts and through music.
Now, some would also say that, are we focused too much on things like math?
I don't know if you can be focused too much on any one area, really. It's one of those things where you need to spread out the knowledge, and sometimes you focus on math and sometimes you focus on art, and really they're both served best when they're done together.
Looking at how kids are being taught today in these college entrance exams, and basically you want to do good on the test so you get accepted to college so you can go to a good college with a good degree so you can have a good life or a happy life. Right. Is there far too much emphasis on what you do when you're 13, 14, and 15, and that ultimately ends up somehow, at least these kids probably think that way, defines them for the rest of their lives?
It can certainly seem that way. The pressures are enormous, and that's really where we need to focus changing things. At Inspired Teaching, the organization I work for, we train our teachers to be instigators of thought. What that means is, regardless of the problem, regardless of the content area, they're teaching students not just what to think, but how to think. And when you approach it from that angle, then it takes off the pressure, because you're really just informing students and turning them into critical thinkers and problem solvers that'll be able to go into any field, regardless of whether or not it's science or arts or architecture, engineering, you name it.
Yeah. Well, not to mention the kids seem pretty happy in
Right,
the clips that we were
There's
showing.
a lot of joy that comes into play.
Happy kids is the most important thing.
Exactly. When they're engaged and not compliant, which is something we focus on as part of our 5 core elements, that's really when you get the most bang for your buck.
Jessica, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Have a good weekend.
Do the same.